Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the best books that I read in 2021. So like last year, I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be, so I'm going to be talking actually about more like 15 instead of 10, but I'm going to combine books in the same series together. So if I read, let's say, a series and my favorite book of the year is book number 1 in that series, and then my third favorite book of the year is the second book in that series, I will just talk about them as first place together. But then right at the end, I'm going to quickly run through what is actually the top 10. So yeah, so I'm making it more complicated than it needs to be, but you'll understand it when I go through it, okay? The list if series are included together. So in that case, then number 10 is going to be Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman. I don't have too much to say about this because it is just so sweet. It is the 4th volume in the Heartstopper series, and it follows Nick and Charlie as they form a relationship. In the first volume, Charlie is openly gay and Nick begins to question his sexuality, and it's just about them, their relationship. It's very cute. It's very fluffy. This isn't my favorite. My favorite is 1 and 2. I can't remember which one is my favorite. I'll leave my ranking Alice Oseman video down below because I talk about what rank they are in, but I did prefer this to volume 3, and it had some really beautiful moments in here because in the 3rd volume and in this volume we begin to see Charlie suffering with his mental health, and we also see Nick a lot. He doesn't know what to do, and there's a very beautiful conversation he has with his mother where his mother is like, all you can do is be there for him, and it was just really beautiful. It was really well done. There were some really nice moments in here. I enjoy this series. I feel like everyone does. I don't really need to talk about it that much. So that is number 10. Number 9 would be Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I read this a couple of months ago, and I read it after I had finished reading the entire Mistborn trilogy, and I was kind of let down by the Mistborn trilogy because I was really expecting to just absolutely adore them. New favorite series of all time, and they actually only ended up being 4 stars for me. And so I picked this one up. I had kind of lowered my expectations and I actually ended up loving it. I absolutely adored the story. It was so much fun. There's a really nice sister relationship in here, which is extremely complicated, and I do wish that maybe we had gotten a bit more of that relationship in here. But we follow this world where the magic revolves around breaths and color and all of this, and we follow 2 sisters. And the older sister is supposed to be sent off to marry the God King, but then the father changes his mind and sends the younger sister because, let's be honest, he's a terrible father and dislikes her. And so she is sent there. She has none of the training her sister has, and she is kind of naive about all of this stuff, but she tries to navigate her way around this world, and then her sister follows after her. And I really enjoy this. The characters, I absolutely love them. They were so flawed and so wonderful. I think Wynne in the Mistborn trilogy, she is very kind of flat. You can nearly like a self-insert, to be honest. Like, you can just add a personality onto her. But in this one, the women, they are actually written really well in my opinion. So Ciri, who is the younger sister and is sent off, she gets there and she is like overwhelmed by the color and all of this, and she is quite girly and just so joyful and cheerful, and that is like not frowned upon. Oftentimes in fantasy books it's looked down on, like you're not powerful unless you're like actually like physically able for a fight and all of this, and that is just like not the case here. And then the other sister, Vivenna, she goes through a wonderful development in here because she realizes that in her religion, you know, she is supposed to be equal to everyone. Even though she is their princess, she is their equal, and she starts to realize that actually maybe she didn't actually always believe this, and she is starting to realize that she is just their equal. And it's a really wonderful character development she goes through. There's a slight romance in here that I actually quite enjoyed. There's also another character that we get his point of view, and he is a god who does not believe in the gods, and his journey in this book is also just so wonderful. I enjoyed the characters, as I said. I really like the world building. I don't think it's his best. I do think that the Mistborn world building was like done slightly better. It is kind of a slightly more confusing system, but and again, the plot I really enjoyed because it was very, you know, sneaking around trying to get this information, political scheming, and I really enjoy that kind of a plot. So then number 8 that I'm going to talk about is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones, and this was such a surprise to me because I have watched the Ghibli movie. I really enjoyed it. The soundtrack, one of the best soundtracks ever. Love it. I love all of his stuff, to be honest, so I really enjoyed the movie, and I decided to pick this up for Readathon because I know that JD Ray Reid really enjoys it, and so I was like, might as well pick it up. And it was so wonderful. I was so surprised by some of the stuff that happens. I kind of said, and I think I vlogged that week or something maybe. Book and the movie, they are so similar and so different at the same time. Like, they are both just so magical and whimsical and just incredible. And they both give you those fairy tale feelings. Hal and Sophie, they are also very similar, but I do feel like in the book, they're like dialed up. Like, they are like so over the top. Like, Sophie is the grumpiest old lady you will ever find. And Hal is just like so over dramatic, so over the top, so like self-absorbed. And so I feel like they did like tone them down a little for the Ghibli movie. But I do think that there is like quite a few similarities, and also like the biggest difference is like the way they handle like war and all of that. I really enjoyed it. I love where the story went. There were some really big surprises for me. Something to do with whales is all I'll say. I was like, wait, what? I was really pleasantly surprised. The characters are amazing. I love them so much. Their relationship is so cute. The plot is just so magical and whimsical and all of that, and it does take a while for it to get going and actually like having like proper plot, but I just had such a good time reading it. It was so much fun, and I read it in a day. I read it in a couple of hours, so I definitely recommend it. If you love the movie, give the book a go. Then number 7 that I'm going to talk about is going to be The Rune of Kings by Jen Lyons. Oh my god, I love this book so much. It's editing, Rebecca, and I would just like to point out, I just realized that I also started this for the exact same readathon that I read Howl's Moving Castle. So what a successful readathon. I didn't finish it during readathon, but I started it. And so 2 of my favorites on that exact same day. Interesting. The reason it's not higher on the list is because it took me so long to read it. When I did put it down, I found it so hard to pick it back up. I think it's just such an intimidating book though. Like, I would put it down and I just would not want to touch it again. Even though I was like really enjoying it while I was reading it. I was just like, I'm okay. I'm not going to touch it. That's like the main reason why it's kind of lower down on the list. It would have been higher otherwise. But I love this story. So it follows Kieran, who is the bard's son, and he gets involved in like this whole plot. There's 2 different timelines, and so in one of them it's in the past and he catches someone summoning a demon, and this starts a whole chain of events where he's claimed as the lost heir to a royal family. And then in the future timeline, he has been basically sold into slavery. We don't know how, and he kind of comes across these people and he kind of gets to learning about like the gods and all of that. And I loved it. The characters were incredible. I love them. I love Galen. He is a cinnamon roll. Kieran is such an adorable character. He kind of reminds me of Fitz a little, because Fitz, like, dumbass, but also like, you know, dangerous, but a dumbass. And also just, I want to hug them, but also I know that they can handle themselves, and they both just go through some crap, and I love them both. And the world is just fascinating. It is so complicated. The family, things keep changing. There is body switching. It is so complicated, which is probably why a lot of people don't love it, because it is so hard to follow. But I ate it up. I loved being so confused. I loved taking notes and trying to figure out who was who. I loved it so much. And then the plot is so interesting. The magic, the gods we are trying to find out. Like, there is this guy and he is trying to basically destroy the world, but then we kind of find out it actually might be Kieran who's going to be the one that is destroying the world. And it is, yeah, it is so good. It is so good, and I'm so excited to continue the series. I love it so much. So then number 6 that I'm going to talk about, is it 6? I don't know, I've lost count, is going to be The Never Tilting World by Rune. And with this, I am also including the sequel, The Ever Cruel Kingdom, because that was also on my 5-star list. As I said, I gave both of these 5 stars. I talked about them in my surprising reads video, and I love them. I was so pleasantly surprised by them because they are YA fantasies. I have been kind of growing out of that, as you can kind of see from the list so far. It hasn't been super YA fantasy heavy, which in previous years it would have been. And it follows this world where the previous generation stopped the world turning. We follow the next generation, and the 2 of our main characters, they try and make their way to the center of the world to try and fix it. And I loved it. I read it at the exact right time. I was in a bit of a slump. I needed something quick and easy to get through. I was just scrolling. I saw the audiobooks. I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. I flew through the both of them. They were so much fun. They are quite tropey, but they are done in the best possible way. Like, there's the one bed trope. There's like, you know, everyone ends up with someone. And I loved it. I adored it. But there's also like consequences for the actions, which doesn't happen a lot in YA. And I loved it for that. It was so well done. I loved them. So the characters, their relationships, everything was so beautiful. And there is a sapphic relationship, just so you all know. There is a very interesting character. They're kind of nearly being possessed by like this dark spirit, and we see like slowly as they gradually become like a darker character and how that affects them and everyone around them, and it is so interesting. It is so well done. And yeah, and the magic, the world, everything, I was so fascinated by it. And it had some really good commentary about trauma, mental health, and as well as like the environment and all of that, and as well as like exploring a really wonderful sisterly relationship, everything. It was so well done, and it was everything I needed to get out of my slump at that time. And so what I believe is going to be book number 5 is going to be A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Obviously, every book on this list is a 5 out of 5 stars. Again, this is another one that quite surprised me because it is very short. I'm not really someone who loves short books. I've enjoyed them, but they've never been like absolute favorites. And this one was so well done. I have read Beartown by Frederick Backman, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It just squeezed into my favorites of last year. And this one is so much better in my opinion. Like, it is so wonderfully done. We follow Ove, who is an old man, and he is one of the grumpiest men you will ever meet. And then he gets some new neighbors, and they move in, and they come knocking at his door asking for help. And all of a sudden, he is just dragged into everyone around him's life, and it is so warm and heartfelt and touching. Everything. The characters in here, absolutely phenomenal, incredible. The relationships that they all build is so sweet and so heartfelt. There is like romantic relationships at the side. There is like those found family, all of this, all of them coming together so beautifully. As I said, I usually like longer books, but this book was the absolute perfect length. There's kind of a bit of a plot where they kind of want to like, you know, they're putting their foot down when it comes to like the government getting involved in like their lives and all of this. And that was also done really well. It was just so wonderful seeing how he touched everyone's life around him without even realizing it, and just all of a sudden he was just wrapped up in it, and it was so wonderful. And there's like flashbacks to his past, and we see how that connects into the future. So like, just a really short example is he always drives a particular brand of car, and that's the car that his dad drove. And so we get that through like a flashback. We see that, and just how everything works, and we seeing his past, seeing how it connects to his present. Absolutely brilliantly done. And so it made me just tear up at so many points, which is so rare for a book to do. It was so beautiful. So then book number 4 that I'm going to talk about is going to be The Poet X by Elizabeth Osvedo. And I'm so surprised by how far up this is on the list. Like, it is so high on the list, and I absolutely adored it, and I never ever would have expected it. It is one of my new favorite contemporary books, especially YA contemporary. Radio Silence is still my absolute favorite, but this is probably second. This is a book told in verse, and it follows a girl, and she is going through all of normal teenager stuff, and she's questioning a lot of things in her life, and the best way she finds to express all of this is through poetry. And so she joins a slam poetry club, and she ends up loving it, and it's just so heartbreaking and heartwarming, and it's incredible how much emotion and how much can happen. It's so few words, it's so deliberate, and it's so moving, and it was absolutely incredible. I was so afraid to pick this up because I never liked poetry, and I only picked it up because I needed something really quick to get through, to get one last book in for a readathon. And the audiobook was there. It was like 3 hours long. I always listen on 3 times speed, and so I put the ebook on, I put the audiobook on. It is narrated by Elizabeth Osvedo, so she knows how it's supposed to be read, and it was done beautifully. Like, it was incredible, mind-blowing. And I actually, like, most of the time if I do get emotional in a book, it is just like tearing up. I very rarely actually shed tears, and I did at one point, and it wasn't even anything like major, like really sad happening, but it was just so beautiful the way this story was told. It was absolutely incredible, and I definitely recommend you give it a go, especially with the audiobook. So then book number 3 is going to be another combination, and that is the Day of Bad trilogy by S.H. Archibald. So I'm not including City of Brass, but Kingdom of Copper and Empire of Gold were both 5 stars. Absolutely adore them. New favorite books, new favorite series, new favorite author. I adored these books, and like, look how chunky this is. I read it in like 3 days. I flew through it. I absolutely adore the characters, the plot, the magic, everything. It is so good. I don't even have words. So this is at the point of the video where I'm starting to get incoherent because I just love them, okay? Just believe me, I love them. The first book we follow Nari, who is a thief and a con woman in 18th century Cairo, and she accidentally summons a Jinn warrior, and then she gets transported to the city of Brass. There she discovers a lot about her past and magic and all of this. And we have, in Kingdom of Copper, we have a 5-year jump, and so much has happened in that time. I love seeing Nari's development through this because obviously she has always like been someone who like she does stuff for herself, all of this, and when she gets to David, she is very much being controlled, she's being watched, and it's so interesting to watch her, someone who loves to be free and all of this, figure out ways to turn the tide her way. And I love that. I thought it was so well done. It's one of the best things about this book, her character development. I love Ali as a character. He's one of my favorite characters. He is so sweet, and I just I also did like Dara as well. He's also another really fascinating character. Just the way this story went was fascinating to me. It's so interesting to see the way it talks about war and all of this and the cycle of violence in this world, because what happens is, so, you know, the Devas take control. They don't like the Jinns, but they put up with them. But they really hate the Shafites and treat them horribly. And so then, you know, the Shafites maybe rise up, or the Jinn rise up, and they're like, hey, if you help us, we'll treat you better. And so then the Jinn are there and they treat the Shafit better, and they don't treat the Deva well either. And so then they get mad and all of this, and it's just this constant cycle. And Nari is the person here. She knows nothing about the past, and she's being told by everyone because she's a Deva, she's supposed to hate these people, she's supposed to hate them people. But she's like, how am I supposed to hate, you know, half human, half Jinn, when I myself have been raised my whole life as a human? And she has an outside perspective, and it's so interesting seeing her because she's like, this is all so unnecessary. And us as readers can also see that as well, but it's so ingrained in them, and that's one of my favorite things about it. It's just, it's so fascinating to read about. And so the next book that I'm going to talk about is number 2, and I'm going to have to defend this with my life. That is Witchshadow by Susan Dennard. I love this book. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adore this. Everyone doesn't like it. I loved it. I absolutely adored what happened in this book. I was shocked. I was on the edge of my seat. I love the characters. I do wish that there was more Adun. I didn't mind the double timelines. I knew that was going to happen though, so I think that might be one of the reasons why I enjoyed it more. I was well prepared for it. Yeah, oh my god. I love this book so much. It was so fascinating to me, and I love where the series is going, and I'm so excited for the final book. And everyone seems to not like this. I can't really speak much about it because it is the 4th book in the series, / 5th if you count Sight Witch, which I do. And as I said, I absolutely adored it. In this series, we follow Safi and Isolde, and they are thread sisters, which are like best friends, like even stronger than that though. And at the start of the series, they are kind of trying to steal back some money that Safi lost in a card game, and it opens the world up so much. And like, we are so far away from that now, and I love that. I love the world, I love the magic, I love the characters. I'm so attached to them. I love them so much. I love the relationships and the character, like the friendships, the found family, all of it. I love it. I don't think it's that confusing. I don't get why people are so confused. It makes sense, I think. And yeah, I really loved it. As I said, a lot of people don't like this, I think because of the 2 timelines. I really enjoyed it. It kept me going. There were some really shocking moments in here, and it got quite violent at times, and I was like, what? So yeah, I really love this, and I'm so excited for the final book to come out, and I will probably be rereading them all before that. I do think Bloodwitch is still my favourite by a tiny bit. So yeah, but I love this. Number 1 is going to be an entire trilogy, and that is the Tonaman trilogy by Robin Hobb. I love this. I love them. I'm literally, I can't even speak about them, because the 3rd series in this world, it follows Fitz 15 years after the original trilogy. I loved it. Again, a lot of people didn't like the last book. I was crying. It took me 9 books, but she finally broke me. She finally broke me, and I loved it. I cannot speak about it because, as I said, just anything I say will be spoilers. But the characters, phenomenal. I am so attached to Fitz. I just care so much. Way too much, maybe, some might say. But I loved it. I found the plot interesting. I did miss some of the characters that we had in the original trilogy, which are no longer around, but I liked the exploration of the skill and the wit in this one, and I liked some of the new characters we got introduced, like Prince Dutiful and all of that, and I enjoyed just getting to the point where we are now, and it was just wonderful. I had such a good time. I really, really loved it. As I said, I can't really speak about it because everything I say would be spoilers, but I adore this. I do think that the Farseer trilogy is still my favorite of the series. There's just something about that just bared its way into my heart, but I really, really love these. So those are the 10 series. And so now we're actually going to go through the top 10 if I separated out the series and all of that. So in that case, 10 would be Howl's Moving Castle, 9 would be the Rune of Kings, 8 would be the Kingdom of Copper, 7 would be the Never Tilting World, 6 would be A Man Called Ove, 5 would be the Poet X, 4 would be the Empire of Gold, 3 would be Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb, number 2 would be Witchshadow by Susan Dennard, and number 1 would be Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. Which I would like to point out, if you watch my favorites from last year, guess what were my top 2 favorite books of last year? Which, such a coincidence, and like literally number 1 and 2. I haven't changed much from last year. So that brings us to the end of this video. I have books all over the floor now, but I do hope you enjoyed. Tell me down below what's your favorite book of the year, and thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!